Without further ado, let's open the meeting. I'll call it to order. I'll do the roll call. Ms. Chick,
Here.
Mr. Kuzno,
Here.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yep.
Mr. Quinto,
Here.
Ms. Afante,
Here.
Mr. Roman is absent with notice, and Zarzecki's present. So we have a quorum, 6 present on the board. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Everybody has received a copy of it. Any change? Well, I'll need a second.
I'll support.
Okay, Ms. Chick. Anybody have any concerns or additions? Hearing none, we'll adopt it on a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. We'll go to the call to the public, and I'll turn it back to Mr. Lippens to handle that. The call is for 3 minutes, and Mr. Lippens will allow you to speak individually to the board. Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. For members of the public, we do have 2 calls on the agenda this evening. You can speak at either call or both. Some people do. Please remember to state your name and address, as well as to hold your comments to 3 minutes. And in order to participate, you can do so by raising your hand in the discussion. I'm actually not seeing any residents or attendees that are participating via phone. So I don't have to give the phone instructions, and I'm seeing a few people raise their hands. The first person who raised their hand is just labeled AO in the meeting chat. AO, I am allowing you to speak. And I've unmuted you. AO, can you hear us?
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
From your voice, I think that's Adam Alney.
Yes. Yeah.
There you
So
go.
Adam Olney, 9315 Lakewood Court. I was just looking at the agenda and, noticed the delay in it getting out. And then when it does come out the very next day, you have public hearings for a meeting on the 19th. I'm just wondering what the delay is in this. It seems like marijuana businesses just keep getting put to the back burner. And I get like some people don't want them or don't like them, but they're not getting treated fairly. They're prepared. I know, some of them were after the last planning commission meeting, they were ready the next day or within 2 or 3 days, and they just keep getting kicked down the road. I know Chair Roman wasn't going to be at the meeting tonight, but in the last meeting, he said he wanted it to go forward, even though he wasn't going to be here. He didn't want to hold it up. I'm just curious. Obviously, I know this isn't a question and answer, but if there is any answers on why they just keep getting held up and kicked down the road. And even if they're happy with the service they're getting, I'm sure they'd be happier if they were open 2 weeks earlier. So that's really my only concern.
Thank you, Adam. As you mentioned, it's not typically a call and response or a question and answer. Sometimes the chair will answer questions, but I'll let him decide. Mr. Zarzecki, do we have any comments on the questions Adam asked?
A quick answer is we are still waiting for fully completed plan applications to us. There have been several issues brought up by all of the applicants so far that have not yet been addressed. And once they are, we will proceed at that point.
Thank you, Chair. I would only add that the public hearings scheduled for the 19th are for new cases that filed applications after the ones that we'd previously held public hearings on, with the exception of the Nature's Cure application, which I was going to give an update on during my planning update, but there was some discussion at the last meeting over whether their sign, a posted sign, had met the township requirements. We confirmed that it didn't. So we are rescheduling their public hearing with a new sign posting. And I guess I'll hold the rest of my comments for my planner update. But do appreciate the questions. The next person in the public who I see raising their hand is Mr. David Gordon. Mr. Gordon, I am allowing you to talk and unmuting you. There we go.
Are we good?
We're good. We can hear you.
Great. David Gordon, Helena Road. Good evening, everybody. Post-election. Congratulations to Ms. Chick for moving on from the primary to the general election. I wanted to urge the Planning Commission to revisit your ag zoning, especially regarding conditional use. It seems to me that there's a lot of uses in there that are that were tossed in there years and years ago because there was no place else to put them. Things like landfills, hospitals, churches, gun ranges, which I guess made sense 60 years ago to say, let's put them in the rural areas because you didn't have any other, you weren't going to put them in downtown Whitmore Lake. But today's world is a little different. When you look at the map in Northfield Township, it seems like there's actually quite a few, a small number of large lots that are large tracts that are being farmed. I'm actually trying to put together a map for the board with a breakdown of how many farms are being planted and the percentage. But when you look at the map, just step back and look at it, we have mostly large lot residential has taken over a lot of the farmland. And pot growing businesses, while on the surface of it, you would think they're growing plants so they could be in the ag area. Basically, you're trying to put a commercial enterprise into a large lot residential area, and it doesn't seem to fit. So I would urge you to look at those conditional uses for ag and possibly the pot ordinance to make a change to have grow operations in commercial, industrial, and the RTM district. Just a suggestion. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Gordon. Appreciate it. Those are the only two hands that were raised for the first call to the public. Not seeing any jump with their hands now, so I believe that would conclude the first call.
All right, we'll close the first call to the public. We'll move on to the clarifications from commissioners. Do any of the existing commissioners have any comments they would like to make at this time regarding statements made during the public? Ms. Chick?
Yep, I would like to comment, and I think that it's probably a good idea for the planning commission to take a look at the zoning out in the ag area and look at those items that are conditional uses and determine if they really are fitting for what is happening out there currently. And I know we have to have places for some things. We can't not do some things, but we need to take a look and see what's more realistic. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the correspondence. The commissioners have received correspondence regarding Ann Arbor Township's charter township, excuse me. They're going to be updating their master plan. They've given us notice. We've received several correspondence, both by email and others regarding the marijuana applications. And we've also received a updated marijuana scoring memorandum, which I believe Mr. Lippens will give a little more information when we go into his section of reporting. So we have no public hearings at this meeting. We will have a public hearing at the next, and that has been noticed. So we'll go to reports from committee. Ms. Chick from the Board of Trustees.
The Board of Trustees actually met, but they had to adjourn their last meeting. There was an issue with a passcode issue for our Zoom meeting, so we couldn't hold the meeting. Otherwise, we'd be in violation of the Open Meetings Act. So I have nothing to report.
Thank you. ZBA?
Yes, ZBA met on July 20th regarding a variance for a private road. They wanted to go from Class A, which they would be required to do. They were hoping to go to Class B private road. And this just happens to be on a property that was slated for a grow operation. So to dovetail in with what Mr. Gordon told us earlier, and I couldn't agree more, which we pushed for, or I pushed for way back when we were drafting the marijuana ordinances, is to not allow those activities in the agricultural area, because we are an agricultural community where we all live. So there was a lot of kickback from neighbors, and there's some indecision on the petitioner's part. They might be taking that operation out of their property. And so what was done at the ZBA meeting was that it was postponed indefinitely, encouraging the petitioner to go back to the Planning Commission to determine whether they are going to continue the proposed marijuana grow operation, and also, if it's going to be strictly residential, decide whether or not the Planning Commission would like to revisit the private road section of the ordinance to create a distinction between residential and non-residential uses of the parcel. So they're actually asking us to rewrite our private road ordinance in one sense, which I thought was a pretty drastic measure. But at the same time, it was postponed indefinitely. That's a long way to say that the meeting was inconclusive. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bird, anything from the staff?
I'm going to go ahead and unmute Miss Bird. I think, Miss Bird, you should be able to speak now.
I had none. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The planning consultants, Mr. Lippens.
Yeah, it was mentioned that the correspondence tonight contained an updated scoring memorandum. The memorandum covers the additional information that we've gotten. You know, I do think that we have a lot of very quality applicants who are, you know, not only working to address the ordinance, but to go above and beyond and show you their business plans and their approach, and that they intend to be quality business owners in the community. So likewise, or correspondingly, we've been working with them to understand what their proposals are and make sure that the memorandum reflects the current status of their proposals. So this is the, I believe, third update we've given. I already mentioned, but I did want to mention that the Nature's Cure proposal has been rescheduled for a new public hearing on the 19th with the Pure Roots application, as well as the Lauren Investments application. We also, since the time those public ads were filed, did receive another application for one of the grow facilities that was applied for, or was that submitted a marijuana facility application as well. So there's more sites coming down. We've been very busy. Wanted to mention to planning commissioners this evening that the officers did decide to take some of the active cases off the agenda tonight because, as the chair mentioned, we wanted to provide the applicants an opportunity to have fully completed site plans before the next discussion. So I think the chairs are trying to balance the officers are trying to balance the need to process these applications quickly with processing them thoroughly. The one thing I did want to mention is that the date of August 26th was discussed as a potential special meeting this month. I wanted to see if planning commissioners were able to hold August 26th. The meeting agenda for your second meeting with public hearings will be relatively full. And the advantage to doing a meeting on the 26th would be we could have full discussion and still meet again for applicants that are ready in August. So yeah, there's lots going on. I'm sure there's more, but before we leave my update or my report, I was hoping at least to get a little feedback, Chair, on whether other commissioners are available for a special meeting on August 26th.
I am not available.
I am available.
I am available.
Yes, I'll be available.
I see Mr. Kuzno says he will. Mr. Dryer? You're
You
muted. Still muted.
I can unmute you, Commissioner Dwyer, if it would help. Let me see if that would work. Oh,
Where'd you go?
Uh-oh.
I lost him.
awesome.
Hey, he's muted, all right.
Oh, here he's back.
Sorry, touched too many buttons. I'm available.
All right,
Can I ask a quick question?
of course.
If we're going to meet on the 26th for a special meeting and we are meeting to review, not just discuss conditional uses so that we can make a determination, is that the purpose of the meeting? So that, okay, we want to make sure that we're meeting and actually doing something.
Yes, that's a good clarification. So at prior meetings when we've discussed scheduling, we, one, because of the number of public hearings we had at that meeting, chose not to also schedule discussions. But normally the discussions are also when you will take a vote. And one of the things we were trying to make sure we did in scheduling discussions was that if we did take a vote, we also were timing it in a way that all of the applications that were ready for a vote could also be forwarded to the board in a relatively similar time. So that's the goal. Essentially, even if we take a vote at 2 consecutive planning commission meetings, that's okay if we can forward them to the board at the board meeting, right? So that's a long way of clarifying. I think the intent of the meeting on the 26th would be for planning commission to be prepared to make a vote, to vote, discuss and vote on the cases we've heard. And I think we're all in consensus that that is the intent, right?
Okay, thank you, Paul. Do you have anything else with your report?
I do not.
All right, Mr. Quinto, the Parks and Recreation.
Nothing to report, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Afonte, the Downtown Planning Group.
Yes, the DDA met on July 22nd and began the meeting talking about this process of streamlining the applications for beginning businesses in the district and how to improve that they wanted to support the various groups who are trying to improve that process. And then the balance of the meeting really was about improving the business district in the short term, for example, handing out COVID safety kits to the local businesses so that they're all on the same page regarding safety, and long-term issues like signage, streetscapes, beautification, including grants, small business grants, as well as redevelopment ready communities grants to help businesses also in the downtown pursue these processes, and concluded on the discussion of the renewal of positions for members of the DDA and how perhaps to expand the committee to include a larger number. I remember one of the members saying the more the merrier. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. All right, that completes the reports from our committees. Next item is unfinished business. We have none at this point. We'll go into new business, and we have one new business case, JPC 200013, recommendation to approve with conditions or deny the request of the Northfield Township Community Center, 9101 Main Street, to construct a parking lot to serve the existing community center on the parcel abutting it. I will go to Mr. Lippens first.
Thank you. This case is quite simply put a good example of the township working to follow its own codes. So that's why you're hearing it tonight. Typically parking lot would be reviewed administratively by the zoning administrator. The letter in your packet from Vidya is her review. There was an issue that she arose in reviewing it that went beyond her purview as the zoning administrator to approve administratively, and that is related to the parking lot. So parking lots are required to be paved or asphalt surfaces, and there's a material that's selected that we support, Vidya supports. I think it's a good material. It's an affordable material that will address the site designs, but we're looking for an opinion from the township engineer, basically to say that substantively this will meet the paving requirements. We actually think this is a better material than some of the others we've seen that allows for a permeable surface, but also supports parking. So we do have Tetra Tech, who's one of the township engineers that approved the plan. The supervisor is also here, who's been the project manager and worked to receive the grant that's funding it. And then we also have Marcus from OHM here this evening as well. So otherwise, the recommendation of the zoning administrator is to combine the lots to a single parcel ID to make sure that the ADA spaces are spaced appropriately, which she provided more comments in the letter on. She said delineation of a loading space. I would note that that means on the site plan. We don't necessarily need a striped space in the lot. We just need to know where loading will occur. And typically that's to demarcate it on the site plan. And then noting light pole locations. So we are recommending approval. I think the conditions can be met administratively. The one question that we really have and are seeking Planning Commission approval of is the parking lot surface. So that is my presentation. Chair, would you like to hear from Tetra Tech or the supervisor on the case?
Yes, we'll allow both of them if they wish to speak on it.
And that will give Marcus time as well, and also give Marcus the opportunity to hear from the supervisor and Janet if he has comments on this as well. All right, so we've got Brian Rubel. Brian, I'm allowing you to talk, and I could promote Brian to panelist. That way you can see him. Brian, I just promoted you to panelist. And I'm looking for Marlene. There she is. Marlene, I am promoting you to panelist as well, so that you could turn your video on as well. And then Brian, I think you have another colleague here, Brian Rubel. Let's see. Brian, there's Marlene.
Thank you.
Marlene, do you know who Brian's colleague is? Or,
Daniel Warren.
all right, I'm looking for, oh yeah, I see Daniel. Daniel, I'm promoting you to panelist as well.
Right. And there's a product rep, and I believe his name is Trent. He's with CSI.
Okay, yeah, I see Trent with CSI. Trent, I'm promoting you to panelist as well.
Okay, thanks.
And I see Brian has his microphone unmuted. Daniel is here. Trent is here. If everyone is having control and no technology issues, I think you can speak. I don't know if you want to brief us on the status of the case. Chair, you'd like to hear from first or prior to any questions being asked?
Yes, let's go with him first.
Brian? Okay.
Marlene, were you going to start?
Well, I was just going to mention that this
Okay.
grant is a federal grant from Urban County, and we received over $91,000 that the township needs to match with $35,000 to provide flooring and this parking lot. For, it's for safety reasons for our senior citizens. It's also going to improve the lighting, but you can see how limited the funding is for that. And as we got into the project, we found that $50,000 was just going to eat a good chunk of our grant up if we had to provide detention. So we went with this alternative product, the GeoPave, and Brian looked into that, and they have, and OHM also, I have to say, looked into a substitute product. So anyway, they developed this design, and I'll let them discuss it, but that's where we're at.
I'll be very brief and open it up for questions. I thought Mr. Lippens did an excellent job of summarizing our thoughts exactly. Due to the county stormwater requirements, the size of a conventional stormwater basin really exceeded the land we had available. It was really, our determination was it was impossible to meet the parking goals and the stormwater goals conventionally. So we ended up needing to infiltrate the stormwater instead of storing it on the surface. We had exactly the same conclusion that Mr. Lippens did, is this probably is the best way to do that. It's the most reliable way that we could find to allow this infiltration practice to continue without excessive maintenance. But it is an aggregate system that is constrained by the GeoPave product. So it is not a typical gravel surface. This stone will be sorted and sieved so it's a uniform size. It will not have the small, fine dust that a typical gravel will have. So we think probably if the township were writing the ordinance that today, you probably would look to include these types of products. But as it's written, it just states what concrete and asphalt. So we think this is equivalent, but it does not meet the letter of the code as it's written. I think Daniel and Trent will be here should you have any questions about the specific technical questions.
Yeah, we have Trent here. I think equivalent is a good way of phrasing that, Brian. And I think you're also right. I mean, we've talked about incorporating these into the zoning ordinance, but that's a long process.
Sure.
One we're working on for sure. So, Chair, would you like to hear from the manufacturer? Who's
I'm familiar with the system. I'm sure the other commissioners may wish to get a little more information. I see Ms. Chick shaking her head. She doesn't need it. Mr. Dryer has raised his hand, so Mr. Dryer?
Just for my own education more than anything, what happens if you don't hit that sand layer 4 feet down at the infiltration area and you still got clay? Do we have enough storage there for a 100-year storm or whatever parameters you're working off, or suddenly do we have a new plan?
Daniel, can you, I know you did those calculations. Could you help answer that question?
So the design documents are written such that it's not just to be excavated down to 4 feet and stop regardless of soil conditions. We understand that soil conditions can vary across the different strata. 5-10 feet away, you can get different elevations, and the direction in the contract drawings is to excavate until you reach the sand permeable layer, regardless of how deep that is.
What does that mean?
Just as a comment for the township, then they need to be aware there could be additional cost once we get into this, and you think you got a firm bid. Be careful about the what ifs for going deeper and making sure that cost is budgeted for.
Mr. Kuzno?
Have they done any soil borings to verify whether they're intercepting the sand layer or not?
I see everybody shaking their head.
Yeah, we did. We hired a geotechnical firm who dug some pits for us and did locate some sand that will, actually very good sand, that will infiltrate the stormwater.
And one other, what's currently there, I guess is the question. Is this an open field? Is this a gravel parking lot already, or what do we have there right now?
Grass.
Mud.
Okay, and how much are you projecting you're actually saving by doing this versus the, well, let me say there's other ways of putting detention under a parking lot. There's very common as those crazy dog houses that they're using all the time nowadays. I know that's very expensive as well. But what are you actually saving by doing this?
Actually, we're saving quite a bit because it's very unique. The road commission would not let us drain to the storm sewer on Main Street to the east because they sensed a capacity concern. The township had been in litigation about 10 years ago with the pawn shop due to drainage coming off of this site to the railroad. So there literally was no other place to take the stormwater infiltration.
I guess the last question would be, well, how does this stuff perform in the wintertime when you have a not so impervious surface that you're working with?
Trent, do you have any knowledge of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question from a freeze thaw from the ice standpoint. I mean, if an ice layer forms, you're not going to get penetration there. But with the voids in the parking lot in the stone, you'll be more susceptible to get drainage through there. And then depending on how deep that layer is, there's a good chance you'll get drainage still in the winter for the most part here in Michigan.
Ms. Chick?
So this is the aggregate pavers, right? Not the grass pavers?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the aggregate pavers, you can actually use de-icer as with the grass pavers, you can't?
Well, yeah, from the standpoint of on the grass, yeah, you'd risk killing the grass. So
Right.
something like that could be used, correct?
Okay, so my understanding is that you would have to, in the winter, your snow plow blade would have to be 1 or 2 inches above the surface?
Correct.
Okay, so if we've got seniors using that community center, how will that impact their travel with walkers or wheelchairs if there's still a snowy or icy surface there?
I mean, that's definitely a good point as well. When they plow, they'd have to put their, I think they call them little skids or
Snowshoe.
snow sleds on them, however they word it. And so there is going to be a little layer that would need to be de-iced or something of that nature.
Okay.
Mr. Quinto?
I have seen this used in 2 applications in Ann Arbor. Both are churches, and they have been very successful because Living Water was going to look at this as an alternative for our back parking lot, but the property owner adjacent to us allowed us to use his parking lot on Sundays, which alleviated our parking problem. So we did have an exploratory search, and we did tour 2 parking facilities that this was used in, and it was during the winter, and both of them seemed to work very well. Thank you.
I have one more question. So I noticed in the literature that it said it was resistant to rutting. And if there is an issue with rutting and a section or a portion of it has to be replaced or maintained, is that costly or is it difficult?
No, it shouldn't be very difficult to replace the pieces with the aggregate base layer going in that was designed. I don't see rutting being an issue. The
Okay.
material empty is very strong, even with no stone in it, so shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Is anybody else? Oh, Mr. Kuzno. Oh,
Yeah, so has the Water Resource Commissioner signed off on this particular thing?
Yes, we've gotten a review from them. I think we just had to clean up a couple small items and we resubmitted that. We think that permit is imminent.
Nice. I'm all for, new ideas, experimental ideas, and I hope it works. I hope it's a good solution.
Can I ask a real
Ms.
quick question?
Conley, you had your hand up.
Cecilia?
Cecilia had a question.
Well, what Commissioner Cousineau just said is what I've been thinking. I'm not quite sure how to phrase this. If we were writing the rules today, I think it's wonderful if we have more substances, more substrates to use. But is there a reason why, or have there been any other communities that have incorporated this surface into the surfaces that are considered when looking at these sorts of applications? Or is the issue of what everyone just raised in terms of freezing, particularly with the situation regarding the elderly customers who will be using it, is that why it isn't a go-to that I've never heard of it? It looks fantastic, but has it been adopted by other communities?
We did some research that it has been used in other northern continental municipalities. I do not know, maybe Trent does, if anybody has adopted it as part of their standards.
I would say from a planning perspective, it's seldom that you'll see specific technologies in codes, but this is consistent with a permeable paving system that is incorporated into a number of codes. The reason why you want a lot paved is so that it is durable, long-lasting, doesn't kick up dust, doesn't track mud, can have spatial delineation, can meet ADA requirements, can be safe for pedestrian walking traffic. And that's why, in our opinion, looking at a material like this, we believe that it is consistent with the intent of the ordinance requiring an asphalt or paved surface. What we would like to incorporate is into the ordinance, which we've talked about before, is some planning commission discretion in making that determination. And probably we also need to provide that discretion to the zoning administrator for things like this that can be administrative reviews as well. Since we don't have that in the ordinance now, it's a planning commission call. But I think everyone likes this material, and I do think it's consistent with the goals of the ordinance with respect with why we require paving for this type of use. Now, if we were looking at an industrial site that was seeing 20 semi trucks a day, we'd be looking at a different type of material. Even if we were looking at a large shopping center, we might be looking more stringently at the type of material. I think this might be appropriate for a part of a parking lot like that to reduce the impervious surface. But yes, I think this material is consistent with the types of systems that are approved in more progressive zoning codes, and that's the type of zoning code we want. And we've talked about incorporating this. So I believe a positive recommendation from Planning Commission would be consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance and with Planning Commission's past decisions. I would, like to also give Mr. McNamara from OHM an opportunity to provide an independent opinion as well, since he is here. And the plans were prepared by Tetra Tech. We do have one of the other township engineers, and Mr. Iaquino, or Commissioner Iaquino, I know you wanted to speak, so.
Thank you. The one church is ULC, which is in downtown Ann Arbor, and they did have to go in front of the Ann Arbor Planning and Zoning Department for approval of that use of that parking lot that they have this permeable surface in, and it was approved by the Ann Arbor parking authorities, or by the planning authority. So that should answer that one question that came out, if there was any other communities that have approved it, because they were definitely approved for it. That was one of the concerns that we addressed and looked at that time. And then my other question is regarding the sign that is on the property. Is that going to be taken down at this time? Because that, to me, should have been taken down when the building was demolished.
Go ahead, Ms. Shiley.
That wasn't part of the project, and that actual parcel isn't where the parking lot is going to be. There's 2 extra parcels there to the north of the community center. So this is the parcel that's directly adjacent to the community center. And that's the other parcel that I would think the township would want to take it down just because it's an eyesore and a blight, but it isn't part of this project, and we can't get money back from Urban County to take that sign down.
Ms. Chick?
So it's not part of the 2 parcels that we have to join together with one tax ID, or it is?
Well, there are 2 parcels north of the community center, and this parcel needs to join with, well, at least Vidya is recommending we join this parcel with the community center parcel, okay. So it's all one. Okay. I don't know about that other one. The township could probably join all of them, but there's probably some ramifications to that we'd want to look at before the board decided to do that.
All right, does Mr. McNamara have a comment now?
Sure, I'll turn on the. Okay. Well, thank you, Chair. So as you've been talking, this is a township-driven project. They hired one of the engineers that works for the township. Developed the plan with the direction of meeting the zoning ordinance. So we weren't asked to do a formal review, which is why you don't have a letter in your packet as you normally would. But I can offer a little bit of feedback about the discussion. Excuse me. First of all, the parking lot, the hard surface parking lot requirement in multiple communities is being evaluated because of the impact that it has on the necessary stormwater controls. And with the Washtenaw County rewriting, I think it's probably been 6 or 7 years ago now, the stormwater requirements, and actually not only encouraging but requiring infiltration, and you essentially have to do a penalty if you're not providing that. A lot of the ordinances are sort of playing catch up and dealing with whether it's this system or other porous pavements. So it's not uncommon to see these in the situations where the zoning ordinance hasn't been updated to accommodate the rules of the drain commissioner. Have these types of requests, so it's not unique to this project. I can say that I reviewed the plan quickly, but one of the questions I think that Vidya had was, is the lot have the proper slopes and drainage? And it does, providing a low area essentially in the center that's not to be used for parking, that's getting the water directed. So even in a rain event situation, the spaces on the aisles should not be underwater. There's a separate area for that. And I think as Brian mentioned, that they've done the calculations. It meets the County Drain Commission standards. And then the only other, I guess, thing, and it was talked about a little bit, was just the town, I think, needs to be aware, and it sounds like you are, that the people that are doing the plowing in the lot need to recognize some of the constraints on that. Likely in the spring, we probably have to be out there and touch it up a little bit if some of the surface does get moved around. But that's pretty simple maintenance work that the township can handle in-house. So that's really all we had. I agree. It's a product that we're seeing in a lot of applications. The advantages that have been talked about tonight. So we don't have any objection.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Chip.
So, which brings me to the question of durability. What is the lifespan of this product compared to, say, concrete or asphalt? And what is the guarantee on or warranty? What are we looking at as far as if there's an issue about not having a cost applied to any kind of a repair?
I don't know if that's questions for me. Yeah, I can maybe answer that partially and then ask Trent to chime in. From a maintenance perspective, you'll notice that if you look at the plans, the cross section is actually pretty significant. So there's a layer of aggregate below the grid system that provides the structural support, and then the grid system is placed and backfilled with additional aggregate. Trent can talk to the specifics of the grid itself, but with regular maintenance and keeping the gravel, the aggregate at grade, that's much easier and much less costly than coming in and doing, for example, pothole patching on an asphalt lot or doing a mill and resurface of an entire lot. So with that, I guess Trent can maybe talk about the warranties and the life expectancy of the system itself.
So it's made of HDPE material, which is designed to have a life expectancy longer than the 20 years that would be typical for a concrete or asphalt parking lot. I don't know the exact length of years the material's designed to last, but I know the HDP material itself is designed to last. I wish I could put the years to it. I could do a quick research, but they use this same material making up other products that they make that are used to build retaining walls. So definitely designed for that 20, 50-year design life like any other pavement.
Well, and what if there's a failure within the first year of whatever? Do you do that, repair that at no cost?
There will be a 1-year warranty under the contract.
1 year, okay.
Mr. Dryer.
Well, there will be some maintenance for the township, I'm guessing. Those cells need to be kept at grade, like you said, otherwise you've got a trip hazard. You've got loose aggregate in there that's going to move around, so the township needs to be prepared to go back in there probably every spring or maybe a couple of times a year and spread aggregate or top that up or make sure that the aggregate has not been pushed out and left holes behind where walkers won't roll or people are going to trip. So there is a little ongoing maintenance to be done, probably no worse than cutting the grass, but still it's not a forget it and leave it, I don't think.
We had a neat, I spoke with a fellow distributor similar to us who did one of these parking lots in 2013 in New York, Port Jefferson, New York. I did a little Google. They get around 24 inches of snow in an average year. And they got a testimony from the owner saying they've had zero maintenance to either their areas at up till 2016 is what the document on the paper shows. But still to this day, they've have no issues with the parking lot, but they had zero maintenance for the first 3 years it existed. So a neat little testimony from someone who's used the product and has dealt with the product for a long period of time.
Ms. Chalkley.
When the landscaper plows it, they're supposed to use a skid plate on the bottom of their plow just so that they don't dig it up.
Right.
And, that will probably leave a small amount of snow there still. But we also have 2 handicap spots that are going to be restriped on the old parking lot. So we have 2 over there. So anybody with walkers would hopefully be able to use those ones. But the 2 that are going to be in the new lot will be right next to the sidewalk. So there will be a short distance that they'll have to be on the aggregate. But my expectation is that aggregate will be very well compacted. So it's not going to be, just chunked out onto, all over the place. So, while walkers won't necessarily be the best thing to be pushing across there, there are still 2 spots in the other lot.
Thank you.
May I make a quick comment?
Yes,
Just very, very briefly, I'm sorry to continue this discussion because I think it sounds like a wonderful material, but I do worry about a 1-year warranty and the fact that it doesn't sound like simple maintenance to me. Perhaps I'm just really out of my element on this, but I just think that a 1-year warranty or not having any maintenance to support township, I'm just a little worried about what we might be getting ourselves into. So that's just my opinion. I will, stand with the other commissioners who know a lot more about this than I do.
Thank you. I'll make a comment. Before I retired, our firm was involved with similar types of applications of this product, not this product, but one similar to it. They've been in use for about 10 years now that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of any major problems. We're not talking about having heavy traffic or loading traffic in these areas that I'm aware of. But looking at the drawings, they did do soil borings and the drainage should be more than adequate. I'm very familiar with WashNA's requirements for drainage, and this condition is appearing throughout the township, throughout the county. Most lots, surface lots in Ann Arbor are now required to have this type of material or a pervious asphalt material for drainage to control the runoffs. I don't see any problem with this product in this application. We're not talking about a huge lot. Yes, there might be some minor maintenance. Occasionally, I know of one situation where the owner that had it out was using a landscape rake to simply, re-rake the surface once in a while. One person for about, half an hour in this case would completely cover that lot. So I see nothing wrong with this type of material. And yes, we definitely need to improve our ordinance to consider these types of pavements, since we're being, in a sense, forced to by the county's requirements. Does anybody else, Mr. Quinto?
I am very supportive of this product in this application as well. And I believe it will give us the living proof so that we can go ahead and update our ordinance for certain situations such as this. Because again, it's not going to be a tremendous high traffic area where, like as you addressed, loading and unloading of large trucks, etc. So I am supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing no other comments, I will make a I make a proposal to recommend case number JPC 2013, recommendation to approve with conditions as stated in the McKenna letter of July 29th, the 5 points, and including the fact that we will approve the GeoPave aggregate paver system for the surface lot for this use as a parking lot to serve the existing community center.
I'll support.
Okay.
Mr. Iaquinto.
Support by Ms. Chick. Any additional comments or recommendations from the board? Seeing none, we will have a roll call vote. Ms. Chick?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzno?
Yes.
Mr. Dryer?
Yes.
Mr. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Ms. Afonte?
Yes.
Mr. Roman is absent, and Zarzeki, yes. The proposal will be sent to the, is approved and will be sent to the township trustees for final approval. Yes, Ms.
Does the board really need to approve this, Mr. Lippens, once the planning commission has approved it?
You're muted, Paul.
There you go.
No, I probably should have made that clear before. Since this is a site plan approval, planning commission's approval is all we're seeking.
I will modify mine to state that it will just be approved.
And so just to clarify, any of the conditions would be handled administratively as part of your approval. So
yes. All right, thank you. It passes 6-0 with one abstention for absentee. We have no other new business. We will proceed with approval of the preceding minutes from July 15th.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the planning commission meetings of July 15th, 2020, and dispense with the reading.
Support.
Thank you. Does anybody have any corrections? Seeing none, we'll go by voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, it passes. We will now go to the final call to the public. Mr. Lippens, I will hand it back to you to handle that.
thank you, Chair. For those members of the public who are still in attendance, This is the second call to the public. I'm gonna pause for a second to give everyone the opportunity to raise your hand if you would like to speak. Yes, I'm seeing Mr. Gordon raising his hand. Again, if you would like to speak, please remember to state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes. Mr. Gordon, I'm unmuting you.
Great. I just wanted to say I hope you guys are correct and that this permeable paver works out well. Obviously, runoff into the storm sewers is a big issue, especially if it winds up at our wastewater treatment plant.
No, storm sewer doesn't go to wastewater treatment.
I am a little concerned with the fact that the manufacturer gives you a 1-year guarantee. That seems that gets you through 1 winter. Maybe it'll be enough. I know that I made the same suggestion for the Meyer parking lot 12 years ago.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
So we're not talking about a gravel parking lot, are we? We're talking about permeable pavers. So hopefully this will be a solution for this community center and its parking dilemma. Best of luck. I hope it works out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Appreciate your comments. Looking to see if there are any other members of the public who would like to speak in the final call. And I have not seen any raise their hand at this time. So Chair, if you think we've provided enough an opportunity, we can go back to you for the next item on the agenda.
Thank you. We will now close the final call. And we'll go on to comments from the commissioners. Ms. Chick?
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kuzno?
Done, thanks.
Mr. Quinto?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I would like to thank all of the people that ran for offices yesterday and, serving this community. There's not a lot of people that put in a lot of time. There's maybe 70 different people that do that on a regular basis. So I really commend those that did take time and run for office. And thank you for being willing to serve.
Thank you. Mr. Dryer?
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Safante?
None, thank you.
All right, I have none additional ones other than to thank all of those or congratulate all of those that have gone through the primary. And hopefully everybody stays safe and sound until our next meeting. I'll make the announcement. Our next regular meeting now will be on August 19th at 7 o'clock. And if there's no other comments, I will ask for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Quinto, supported by Ms. Chick. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? None. We will close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, everyone.
Good evening, thank you, bye.
Bye-bye.